Usually you expect a professional to show up with the right tool for the job.
Right, absolutely.
Like if you hire a plumber to fix a leaky sink, you expect them to pull a wrench out of their bag.
Yeah, that's just basic common sense.
But if they walk into your kitchen wielding a 12-pound sledgehammer, you aren't just questioning their methodology. I mean, you're questioning whether they fundamentally understand what a sink even is.
Exactly. The mismatch between the power of the tool and the fragility of the environment is instantly alarming. And your kitchen is about to be destroyed.
It's terrifying. And that tension between the immense power of a specific tool and the highly populated environments where it's being deployed, well, that is the focal point of today's deep dive.
It's a really fascinating intersection of public policy, physical science, and the private security business.
It really is.
Yeah.
So to get to the bottom of this for you, we are pulling from a pretty wild stack of sources.
Sure.
We've got the actual legislative texts of Tennessee's 2026 laws, that's SB 1384 and HB 683. Plus, we're looking at several security industry op-eds, analyzing the fallout, and a very pointed open letter from a major training academy called Alliance Training and Testing.
Yeah, and the legislation itself created something called an Enhanced Armed Guard certification.
Which sounds, fairly standard at first.
Right, on the surface, regulatory updates in the security sector happen all the time. But this specific enhancement crosses a massive threshold. It actually allows private security personnel to carry and deploy rifle-caliber weapons on the job.
And that is a huge shift. Because think about it, a private training academy makes its money by certifying guards.
It's their whole business model.
Exactly. So a new state-mandated 16-hour certification course should be like a total gold rush for these businesses. They should jump at the chance.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet our sources highlight a massive anomaly here. Alliance Training and Testing, which is a dominant player in this space, is flat out refusing to teach the course.
Yeah, they're leaving that new revenue stream completely untouched. They're just saying no.
Which brings us to our mission today. We are going to examine their refusal through the analytical framework of Angel Rodriguez.
Ooh.
He's a certified protection professional, or CPP.
And his perspective is invaluable because, he ignores the political noise entirely. We aren't taking any political sides here, and neither is he.
Right. He evaluates this law strictly through the lens of ballistic science, the mechanics of commercial building construction, and the severe liability traps.
The traps of arming private guards with high-velocity rifles in everyday civilian spaces.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to fully grasp why an academy is turning away paying customers, we have to isolate the raw physics of the weapons themselves.
Yeah, we have to look at the numbers.
Right, we are talking about the vast difference in kinetic energy between a standard sidearm and a rifle.
And the physical math here is just unforgiving. I mean, a typical armed guard carries a 9mm sidearm.
Sure.
When a standard 9mm service round is fired, it travels at roughly 1,100 to 1,200 feet per second. And upon impact, it delivers about 350 to 400 foot-pounds of energy.
Let's give that unit of measurement some real-world context for you, the listener.
Right.
1 foot-pound of energy is the amount of force required to lift a 1-pound weight exactly 1 foot off the ground.
Right.
So 400 foot-pounds is like dropping a 400-pound weight from a foot high directly onto a single concentrated point.
It is definitively lethal force. There's no questioning that.
Yeah.
But the design of the ammunition is heavily factored into that force. Defensive handgun ammunition is engineered to utilize controlled expansion.
Meaning what exactly?
Well, when it impacts soft tissue, the hollow point mushrooms outward. It increases its surface area specifically to bleed off that 400 foot-pounds of energy rapidly.
So it's stopping.
Exactly. It's coming to a halt inside the target rather than passing entirely through.
Okay, so it's acting essentially like a parachute. The moment a parachute deploys, it expands to catch air, creates massive drag, and halts forward momentum.
That is a great way to think about it.
The 9mm round is designed to catch the medium it hits and just stop. But the tool this new Tennessee law introduces, a rifle firing a 5.56 or .223 caliber round, operates on entirely different physics.
Oh, completely different. We are looking at velocities jumping to roughly 3,000 feet per second.
Wow.
Yeah. And because kinetic energy scales exponentially with velocity, that speed increase generates over 1,200 foot-pounds of energy.
Wait, so we were talking about tripling the destructive force.
Tripling it, easily. Furthermore, military-style 5.56 ammunition, like your full metal jacket or green tip rounds, often lacks that parachute-like expansion mechanism when hitting intermediate barriers.
So instead of a parachute, the 5.56 round is like an ice pick moving at Mach 2.5.
Yes, exactly. It relies on blistering speed to punch straight through whatever's in front of it.
It doesn't deform and halt upon initial impact with structural materials. It simply threads the needle and keeps traveling with lethal velocity.
And what's fascinating here is that the state legislation completely ignores these fundamental laws of physics when drafting the new security guidelines.
They just gloss right over it.
Pretty much. The lawmakers essentially authorized a 1,200 foot-pound ice pick without implementing any stringent guardrails regarding where that kinetic energy ultimately terminates.
And that failure to account for terminal energy brings the environment itself into the equation.
Yes, the surroundings.
Because security guards are not standing in open deserts or fortified bunkers. They operate in highly congested, civilian-heavy infrastructure.
Right, everyday places.
We are talking about shopping malls, corporate office lobbies, hospital corridors, and school campuses.
And the structural makeup of those environments becomes a severe liability. I mean, think about commercial interior construction.
It's mostly drywall, right?
Exactly. It relies heavily on steel studs, maybe 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch gypsum drywall, acoustic ceiling tiles, and decorative glass.
None of which stops a bullet.
These materials offer literally zero ballistic resistance to a 3,000 foot per second rifle projectile.
Okay, but let me pose the counter argument we often see in these debates, just to stress test the CPP methodology here.
Sure, go for it.
We know bad actors occasionally target these exact spaces with rifles. The immediate tactical instinct for a lot of people is to match the threat's firepower.
Right, the idea of equalizing the fight.
Yeah, if an active threat enters a corporate campus with a long gun, the instinct is that the security guard should have a long gun to engage them properly.
And that instinct makes sense until you map out the geometry of an indoor firefight.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, Angel Rodriguez's CPP framework doesn't view engagements in a vacuum. It calculates the collateral risk.
The bystanders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A 5.56 round can easily penetrate a standard interior office wall, cross the adjacent hallway, penetrate the facing wall, and still retain enough kinetic energy to be fatal 2 rooms away from the initial engagement.
Oh, wow. So the overpenetration risk effectively turns the building's geometry against the guard.
It does. The defensive benefit of deploying a rifle is entirely eclipsed by the statistical probability that you will strike an unseen bystander who's just, sitting at a desk 3 walls away.
That is a terrifying thought.
It really is. The tactical response fails its primary objective if the tool utilized to stop a threat simultaneously inflicts catastrophic harm on the public it was deployed to protect.
Because there's no standoff distance.
Right. The lack of standoff distance in a hospital hallway or a retail aisle means the guard has no safe backstop.
So every missed shot,
and even shots that strike the intended target and pass cleanly through,
they become unguided, lethal projectiles moving blindly through a populated structure.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The physical inability of drywall to contain a rifle round directly feeds into the civil inability of a training academy to contain the resulting lawsuit.
Yes, the legal fallout is massive.
We are seeing a rare scenario where a private industry looks at a deregulation or an expansion of their market and actively points out that the standards are just too reckless to touch.
Because civil litigation following a lethal use of force incident is ruthless, it's systematic.
Oh, absolutely.
When a catastrophic over-penetration event occurs, say a guard fires a rifle in a mall and an innocent shopper is tragically killed through a partition wall, the plaintiff's attorneys will build a timeline of culpability.
They will start with the guard who told the trigger.
Right.
They'll verify the enhanced armed guard certification in the state database. And once they see the state authorize the guard to carry the weapon, the legal crosshairs instantly snap to the entity that provided the training.
Immediately, the attorneys will subpoena the academy, demanding to see the curriculum that supposedly prepared this individual to deploy a rifle in a shopping mall.
And the training academy becomes the primary target for a multi-million-dollar negligence lawsuit.
That is the exact boardroom calculation Alliance Training and Testing made. Because, get this, the state's requirement for this certification is only 16 hours of instruction.
Wait, just 16 hours?
That's it.
16 hours is barely enough time to teach a novice the mechanical manual of arms. I mean, how to load, unload, clear complex malfunctions, and perform basic zeroing procedures.
Exactly. It leaves effectively zero time for advanced spatial awareness training, backstop calculation, low-light target discrimination, or, stress-inoculated force-on-force scenario training.
Things you desperately need if you're holding a rifle in a crowded space.
Right. A trainer cannot stand before a civil jury and defend a 16-hour curriculum as sufficient preparation for the complexities of indoor rifle combat.
They'd be laughed out of court, or worse, held fully liable.
Completely liable. Without comprehensive peer-reviewed standards established by recognized tactical institutions, an academy issuing these certificates is essentially underwriting an unquantifiable legal risk with their own corporate assets.
It's an untenable position for a private business. I mean, if the academies recognize that private security cannot safely shoulder the risk of deploying rifles, it really shifts the conversation.
It does. It shifts it to who actually possesses the framework to manage that risk.
Who is actually equipped for this?
Well, the consensus among protection professionals is that long guns belong almost exclusively within the domain of sworn law enforcement.
Okay.
Angel Rodriguez summarized this perfectly in his open letter. He stated, and I'm quoting here, "My sincere hope is that Tennessee will revisit this law before an incident involving an innocent bystander forces a reactive repeal. Rifles have no place in routine private security operations."
He's highlighting that the tragedy is practically written right into the legislation. It's merely a matter of waiting for the physics to catch up with the policy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And when we talk about law enforcement being the proper venue for these weapons, we're really talking about the invisible infrastructure that follows a police rifle.
What do you mean by invisible infrastructure?
Well, it's not just handing an officer a weapon, right? It's the bureaucratic and legal scaffolding supporting that weapon.
Right, the oversight.
Exactly. A municipal police department has dedicated use of force review boards. They operate under strict, multi-layered accountability structures governed by decades of constitutional case law.
And officers undergo continuous mandated qualification cycles.
Yes, and they have access to ongoing psychological evaluations and peer support after critical incidents.
Whereas a private security firm,
they might just consist of a regional manager, an HR representative, and a commercial liability insurance policy.
That is a stark contrast.
They do not have lethal force investigation teams or internal affairs divisions.
Right.
They lack the institutional oversight required to investigate, justify, and legally shield the deployment of high-velocity weapons in public spaces.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this lack of infrastructure is precisely why the vast majority of states strictly prohibit private security from carrying long guns.
So Tennessee is really out on its own here.
Yeah, the national consensus among risk management actuaries and security regulators aligns completely with Alliance Training and Testing. Tennessee's legislation is a distinct outlier that breaks from established industry safety standards.
Wow. So the physical risks, the geometry of modern buildings, and the massive liability exposure all paint a grim picture.
Very grim.
Yet there is a final, purely economic factor that makes the certification a dead end for training academies.
It's an illusion of return on investment.
Exactly, because it's based on an extremely restricted applicant pool.
The state did place severe restrictions on who can even apply for this enhanced certification, making the total adjustable market practically non-existent.
So an applicant cannot just be a standard security guard looking to upgrade their license?
Not at all. The legislative text lays out very narrow prerequisites. To apply, an individual needs either 5 full years of sworn law enforcement experience,
right,
or 4 years of active duty military service, specifically within a combat arms MOS.
Let's clarify for those who might be unfamiliar with military acronyms. MOS stands for Military Occupational Specialty. It's the specific job code you hold in the military.
Right, and the law mandates the applicant must have served in a combat-specific role, like infantry, artillery, or special operations.
So it excludes mechanics, logisticians, or administrative personnel.
Completely excludes them.
And in addition to those strict service requirements, the applicant must pass a stringent psychological evaluation and a fingerprint-based background check.
Right. So an academy owner has to calculate the sheer volume of candidates who meet all those criteria, currently live in Tennessee, actively want to work a private security job that involves carrying a rifle, and are willing to pay for the course.
You're filtering the population down to a microscopic fraction.
Exactly. And from a business operational standpoint, preparing to teach this course requires massive upfront capital.
Oh, I bet. Ranges aren't cheap.
No, they aren't. An academy must lease time at specialized 100-yard long gun ranges, which are exceedingly rare and expensive compared to standard 25-yard indoor pistol bays.
Plus, they also have to purchase specialized commercial liability insurance. A standard policy for a training academy might, triple in premium cost the moment rifle certifications are added to the curriculum.
And they must retain and pay highly specialized instructors.
So laying out all that capital to service a tiny handful of eligible students a year is just a disastrous business model.
It creates a paradox where the state has invented a certification that is simultaneously too legally dangerous to teach to the masses and too economically starved to teach to a niche market.
It's lose-lose. But the smart players in the industry aren't just complaining, they're actually pivoting to alternatives that enhance safety.
Right, like Alliance Training and Testing, who is partnering with Royal Range.
Yeah, they're dedicating their resources to advanced scenario-driven handgun training instead of chasing the rifle certification.
They are running courses like low-light differential, speed and precision pistol, and reality-based force-on-force training.
Which is so much more practical.
It is. They are operating on the philosophy that throwing a more destructive weapon at a poorly trained guard doesn't solve a tactical deficit.
It just amplifies the consequences of their mistakes.
Exactly.
Mastering the tool you carry daily under extreme pressure yields a far higher survival rate than introducing an unfamiliar high-liability weapon into the mix. I mean, if a guard cannot accurately manage their 9mm sight picture while navigating a dimly lit retail corridor,
handing them a 5.56 rifle guarantees a catastrophic outcome.
Absolutely. Advanced practical handgun training directly mitigates risk. It improves spatial awareness, target discrimination, and split-second decision-making.
Things a loosely defined 16-hour state rifle certification achieves none of.
So what does this all mean? When you aggregate the physics, the architecture, the law, and the economics, Tennessee's legislation represents a structural failure on multiple fronts.
It really does. I mean, we started by breaking down the raw kinetic energy, contrasting the parachute-like expansion of a 9mm round with the ice pick velocity of a 5.56 rifle round.
Right. And we analyzed the geometry of commercial real estate, detailing how standard drywall and steel studs fail to contain that 1,200 foot-pounds of energy.
Transforming innocent bystanders in adjacent rooms into collateral casualties.
We explored the terrifying civil liability waiting for any academy foolish enough to underwrite a legally deficient 16-hour curriculum.
And we highlighted the immense gap between a private security firm's HR department and the robust constitutional oversight infrastructure of a municipal police department.
Finally, we broke down the illusion of profitability, showing how the incredibly narrow combat arms and law enforcement prerequisites effectively eliminated the customer base,
leaving academies with a high-risk, zero-reward business proposition.
All of this leaves us with a fascinating, slightly unnerving tangent to consider.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if the private sector is mathematically and legally walled off from equipping its own security guards with long guns due to this massive liability,
right,
yet commercial clients, like large shopping centers or private school campuses, increasingly demand that militarized level of deterrence. What happens next?
Oh, it creates a vacuum that only one group can fill.
Exactly. It points toward a future where massive corporations and private institutions start exclusively hiring off-duty police officers to bypass the private sector's liability walls.
That's a profound thought.
It really begs the question, are we on the verge of quietly privatizing municipal law enforcement?
Allowing the highest bidders to essentially rent the state's ballistic infrastructure and qualified immunity for their own commercial properties.
It's a profound shift in how we manage public safety versus private security, driven entirely by the physics and liabilities we've discussed today.
It's definitely a trend worth watching closely.
It is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the ballistics and boardrooms shaping our security landscape. We encourage you to always examine the physical and legal realities beneath the surface of new legislation.
And to question the true cost of bringing sledgehammers in to fix our sinks.
Exactly. Until next time.